Now go to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, who said that when Dajjal is released by Allah to commence his mission of impersonating the true Messiah and eventually ruling the world from Jerusalem, he will live on earth for 40 days. One day, which would be like a year. It didn't say one day which would last as a year. No. It said one day which would be like a year. Yawmun kasana. A day which would be like a month. Yawmun kashahr. A day which would be like a week. Yawmun ka Jum'ah. And then after that, Sa'iru ayyamihi ka ayyamikum. He will be in our world of space and of time as a human being. So we will see him. But before that, there are 3 stages. And I am suggesting to you, gently so, because only Allah knows the truth, that when Allah spoke of the shadow, which when it comes will appear in 3 stages, Allah is speaking about this. The 3 stages that Dajjal will pass through before he appears in human form in our world of space and time. Are there angels in this room apart from your wife? Are there angels in this room? Yes. What? One on each shoulder. Can you see them? No. Are there jinn in this room? Are there jinn? I know there are lots in Washington. Yes, there are jinn here. Can you see them? Then why should it be so difficult? Why should it be so difficult to understand? That Dajjal can be released. He can be in this world and yet not in our world of space and time. Why? Don't you teach your children, as my father taught me, that when you come back home and you open the door, there's no one in the house, but the children have to be taught to say Salaam Alaikum. They don't do that in that godless part of the world, which now wants to teach Imran Hosein how to eat. But in our part of the world, we teach our children to say Assalamu Alaikum when you open the door. There are angels in the house. So Dajjal is here. Yes, he is here. But you can't see him. He is passing through 3 stages of a shadow. And this is a dangerous shadow. The first stage will last for the longest period of time. And then the second stage will last for a shorter period of time. But the third stage will last for the shortest one of all. Where is the shadow? We know that Dajjal was released in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. I have a book entitled Jerusalem in the Quran. I guess some of you must have read it. It was written, we have it in Bahasa as well. It was written 12, 14 years ago. And in that book you'll find all of this analysis, all this. 14 years ago. The Dajjal was released in an island called Britain. Where is the evidence? I only have this much time. Maybe in the question and answer session I can expand. And from that island of Britain, during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, he commenced his mission to eventually rule the world from Jerusalem. While, again, could you excuse me, I'm 74 years of age. I've been teaching this subject for so long, I'm tired now. While we were drinking our Teh Tarik and eating roti canai, the Russians were thinking. The Russian leader speaks like no Muslim leader dares to speak. None. No prime minister, no president, no king in this Muslim world dares to speak the way Putin speaks. I'm proud of Putin. He accuses the United States of imperial ambitions. He uses elegant language. That's Russian diplomacy today. They use elegant language, but they punch you with a powerful punch. They accuse the United States and the West of imperial ambitions, which is exactly what we're talking about here, wanting to rule the world. The mission commenced in Britain, and suddenly we find Britain emerging for the first time in modern history. It never happened before. Britain emerges as a ruling state. And when you were in school in Penang, they taught you about Pax Britannica. Yeah. And you knew that the sterling pound was His Majesty, the sterling pound. When you were in school in Penang, we see all of these jerseys from Penang today. Britain emerged as a ruling state. And not only does Britain control every single naval port in the world, strategically important naval port in the world, because the British Navy is more powerful than the combined might of all other navies in the world. Not only does Britain have military control over the sea, not only does Britain have the military technology on the land to wage modern warfare, but more ominously so, Britain begins the process of taking control of the world of money through the Bank of England. And Britain becomes the money lender par excellence of the world through a banking system. And eventually, the gold sterling coin, £1 in gold, disappears. And the paper replaces the gold, while we were eating our roti canai and drinking Teh Tarik. And then came the end of the day like a year. The first stage of the shadow had ended. And now the second stage of the shadow commenced. When Britain is facing defeat in the First World War and in the Second World War, and if the United States had not intervened, Britain would have been doomed. The United States has emerged out of nowhere and using slave labor while going to church on Sunday mornings and praying to a white man who is gone. Using slave labor, they fast-tracked building a new paradise on earth. When we had slavery, we didn't start it. We met it. But they started slavery. They turned to slavery to build a new America, a golden world that will dazzle the world. We met slavery. We didn't start. And what did our Prophet say? But the New York Times wouldn't print it. Our Prophet said, give your slave to eat the food that you eat, and give him to wear the clothes that you wear. In Islam, when we liberated a slave, we made sure that we first restored his humanity, and then we liberated him. And after we liberated him, we embraced him as our brother. And by the next generation, you didn't know whose father was a slave master and whose father was a slave. But in the United States of America, which all of mankind is worshipping today, they've forgotten Mecca as their Qibla. Their Qibla is Washington and London. That's where they worship. They worship at the altar of a US visa. Forgive my sarcasm. The son of the slave and the grandson of the slave and the great-grandson and the great-great-great-great-grandson of the slave is still a slave. And the slave master is still a slave master after 200 years. And they dare to talk to Islam? So the United States has built fast track, and they take over from Britain, because now you have something called, you must have heard about it, the aeroplane. The aeroplane. And so now wars are fought not only on the land and in the sea, but in the sky. Neville Chamberlain was Prime Minister of Britain, and he never set foot in an aeroplane until 1947, when he had to fly to Berlin. 1947 was just around the corner. Huh? So air power just came recent. And the United States is not only the most powerful country in the world militarily, more powerful than all the rest of the world combined, but the United States takes over from Britain as the financial and monetary capital of the world. And the US dollar replaces the sterling pound. Momentous change taking place in the world. And the scholars of Islam still drinking teh tarik and eating roti canai. And you can search and search and search and search. You will not find any analysis from any Islamic scholar using the Quran, using the Hadith to explain what is happening in the world. No. What happened to them? I believe methodology has played a significant role in this monstrous failure on the part of Islamic scholarship. And so a day like a month replaced a day like a year. And Pax Americana replaced Pax Britannica. We have an explanation for Pax Britannica. We have an explanation for Pax Americana. Let me hear yours. If you are a political scientist, let me hear what is your explanation. I have been around the universities. There is none. None. Ours is the only one. We are now living at that moment in time when, if you have eyes and you can see, you would know that the United States of America is now in irreversible decline. And stage 3 of the shadow is about to replace stage 2. I may not live long enough to see the change from stage 2 to stage 1. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. But you may live to see it. Well then, who is going to replace the United States? Is it China? No. Is it Russia? No. It's going to be Israel. How can Israel rule the world? United States is big. Israel is small. Either Israel has to expand and become very big and powerful like the United States, or, very sad to mention it, the world has to become smaller. The world has to become smaller. Which one will it be? You know the answer. As terrifying as it is, you know the answer. That is why we're expecting nuclear war before November the 4th of this year. Before November the 4th of this year. Nuclear war. I hope I am wrong. I pray that I am wrong. I'll be happy if I'm wrong. But I have to tell you, they cannot take a chance that Donald Trump will become president. They cannot take that chance. Because Donald Trump says, it makes no sense for us to have this antagonistic relationship with Russia. Yes. No. Donald Trump says, I'm a businessman. I'm not going to allow the Chinese to do business the way they've been doing it in the past. Things are going to be different with me. So they cannot take a chance. They have to attack Russia before the elections in the United States. And Russia is ready for them. Russia is not afraid. And thank Allah for Russia. And thank Allah for China. We're not talking about Singapore. We're talking about China. China is a proud civilization. Don't look down your nose on the Chinese. China is a proud civilization. China will not bend her knee before Washington. No. And so the stage is now set. Our time is almost up. We do not have the time to explain. But mine is not the only voice. No, thank Allah. There are many, many, many voices around the world saying the same thing that I'm saying. That the Great War is around the corner. And this one is not going to be fought with sticks and stones. This is going to be a war fought with weapons of mass destruction. Amongst them we know about nuclear weapons, but there could be others as well that we don't know about. And when that war takes place, the world is going to become much smaller. So it's a good time to be old. It's a good time to be old. It's a terrible time to be young. Terrible. After the war takes place, do you know what our Prophet has said? He spoke about the war, incidentally. The next event to take place after the Great War, said Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, is what? The conquest of Constantinople. The Turkish government has prohibited you from even using the name Constantinople. It's against the law. You have to use the name Istanbul. Why are you afraid, Turkey? Huh? Come on, Mustafa Kamal, answer me. The answer is, they don't want you to hear what Muhammad ﷺ said. That's why. The conquest of Constantinople is to take place after the Great War. And that conquest makes sense only in terms of military affairs. Only military. Otherwise, why Constantinople? Why aren't we heading for Jerusalem? Constantinople stands on the Bosphorus. The Bosphorus is a waterway. If you study geography at school, they did geography in Penang, didn't they? Yeah. You attended the class? The Bosphorus is a waterway which connects two seas. Which are the two seas? Come on, let me hear you. Good. This one is easy, the Mediterranean Sea. That one is the Black Sea, correct. The Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Yeah. The Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. And if that passageway is open, today NATO controls it. NATO controls it directly now. And NATO controlled it before through their friend. Who was their friend? Who was their friend who controlled the Bosphorus for 500-600 years? The Ottoman, Dajjal's Ottoman Empire. Come on. When I say Dajjal's Ottoman Empire, I'm talking from eschatology. I'm not talking to my hat, okay? I know what I'm talking about, but I'm fighting against time here. It is only in one military sense that the conquest of Constantinople makes military sense, and that is that the Russian Navy will now have the freedom of passage. NATO cannot stop it, to enter into the Mediterranean, indicating that the war which is coming is going to spell the destruction of NATO. NATO will be gone, because NATO cannot prevent the conquest of Constantinople.